We analyzed the F1 visa interviews for spring 2026, which happened in the month of November. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about the unique questions that are being asked, some embassy-wise trends, and also what do visa officers want now. Keep on watching. Hi guys, my name is Shachi. I'm a US visa coach, and on this channel you'll find lots of useful videos on the US visa process. We have an entire playlist for F1, so make sure to check it out. In the description box below, you will also find tons of free resources to help you in your preparation, and you can also work one-to-one with me for your DS-160 form and interview prep. So the link for all of this is right below in the description box. Do check it out. So let me start by discussing the one thing that's on everyone's mind, the availability of slots. So slot availability for spring 2026 has been quite limited. If I were to compare to the last fall or even the last spring, the volumes are down drastically. Moreover, there isn't any bulk opening of appointments so far because every intake we usually have at least one bulk opening, but for this intake it hasn't happened. The slots are coming in very small batches or very small tranches, and it really takes you tracking and monitoring to get that appointment. Also adding a note about the refuse slots. So thankfully refuse slots have started opening. Till now the refusal slots are available for those refusals till Jan 2025. That means if your previous F1 visa interview was till Jan 2025, you will be able to find the next appointment now. So it really takes about 7 to 8 months after an F1 visa interview to find the next appointment. And this brings the importance of this attempt into the picture. So the visa attempt that you're going now, treat it with utmost importance. Make sure that your DS-160 form, your answers, everything is done perfectly, because it's best that you smash it in this attempt. Otherwise, you will be stuck in this loop of finding an appointment. And just like to quickly add here that we also help in finding slots. So if you need our help in getting your visa appointment, do reach out. The contact details are right below in the description box. Let's dive now into the interview questions. So to make this video a bit structured, I've divided it embassy wise. So I have covered all the 4 embassies in which we saw the F1 visa interviews. That's Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai and Hyderabad. And for each embassy, I'm going to discuss the general guidelines, the questions that are asked, and also some unique questions that were specific to that embassy. On the screen here, you'll see the timestamps for all the 4 embassies. So feel free to skip to the embassy that you're most interested in. However, I would recommend that you watch all the 4 embassies because there are some questions very specific to each embassy and it might just help you. Quick disclaimer here, we've not covered Kolkata because we were literally not able to find any interview experiences from Kolkata. So in case you're watching this video and you have your interview in Kolkata lined up, do comment below Kolkata and let me know so that we can dig out some more information and bring Kolkata experiences to you. So the first embassy that I'm going to cover is Mumbai, and let me start with the general guidelines. So in Mumbai, the average time taken to complete the entire F1 visa process was about 2 hours. That means from the time the student arrived at the embassy, went inside, stood in the queue, got his turn, gave the interview and came out, it's taking about 2 hours of time. So there were many students who worked with us who went to Mumbai, and all of them had their appointment somewhere around 9 o'clock in the morning, and they were all out around 11:30. So budget about 2 hours of time if you have your interview in the Mumbai consulate. The number of counters open in Mumbai is about 8 to 9. So typically when you go inside the embassy, you'll see that there are many counters. In fact, there are always 20 to 30 counters, but not all of the counters are open all the time. So right now in Mumbai, there are about 8 to 9 counters which are active. And keep in mind that these counters are for all the visa interviews because the interviews happen together. So F1 interviews essentially are being taken in all of these 8 to 9 counters. Third, the typical number of questions. Now this was very unique to Mumbai. So when we observed the interviews, we saw that the interviews in Mumbai were slightly longer compared to the other embassies in India. While the other embassies had a typical 4 to 5 questions, the interviews in Mumbai ranged around 7 to 8. So Mumbai followed a slightly longer, a slightly conversational style of interview compared to the other embassies in India. And students were given enough time to speak. We didn't see any interviews where the student was interrupted or said that I couldn't complete my answer. The time given seemed to be enough, and the officers are listening once you start speaking. And I think this is really important to note because when I work with students, one of the main concerns that students have is, will I have enough time to speak, and should I limit my answer to just one line to make sure that I'm able to finish it? Well, in many practical circumstances, it's not possible. If you're going to explain why this course or why this university, you cannot possibly explain in one line. So remove that time pressure and remember that you have 3 to 4 lines and you have enough time to complete that answer. The last general guideline about Mumbai is the most asked question. So the most asked question in Mumbai was, why this course and why this university? So that's 2. So these were the 2 most asked questions in Mumbai Embassy. And one surprising thing was not much was asked about funding. So when we looked at the interview experiences, we hardly saw any questions related to financing or funding, and the officers seemed to focus more on the course and the university. So these are the general guidelines for Mumbai Embassy. Now let's dive into the specific category of the questions. So first I'm going to start with the bachelors. So almost all students were asked questions related to their bachelors or related to their undergrad, and the questions were, number 1, what was your bachelor's in, or what did you do in your bachelor's? So this was a very common question where the officers wanted to understand what was the domain of the bachelor's, also what subjects were there. And the main intention behind asking this question is essentially to see how the background and the previous education of the student connects to the course in the US. Because this is one of the very important parameters for F1 visa interview, that your background and your past education are connected. And many times when there's a mismatch, the students do face the question as to why they're changing their domain. So the whole intent in asking what did you do in your bachelor's or what did you study is to create this link. Now, when you answer this question, here's a quick tip. Keep in mind that you cannot possibly tell all the subjects of your bachelor's, right? So try to pick 2 to 3 subjects which you know well and which connect to the course in the US, and mention only those subjects specifically in this answer. The second question related to bachelor's was, how does your undergrad relate to the master's in the US? So this is what we just discussed. Many times officers directly ask, how does your undergrad relate to the master's in the US? So here it's about creating that like-to-like comparison. So pick 1 or 2 subjects from your bachelor's and connect it to 1 or 2 electives or 1 or 2 core subjects from your master's. And when we say connect, it need not be the same subject, they need to be in the same domain. For example, let's say that you studied about statistics and database in your bachelor's. All of this will connect to the analytics and the data handling subjects that you have in your master's. So give 1 or 2 examples of this comparison, and that will help the officers understand this. The next category of questions in Mumbai is related to the course. And like I said before, this was the most asked category of questions. Now, many students were asked directly, why this course now? But some were also asked in a different way. And one of the questions was that if you're already working, then why do you need this master's? Which is essentially a different way of asking why this course. For preparing the answers related to the course, we actually have a full YouTube video. I'm going to link the video right here, and this video is going to give you the step-by-step way of deriving this answer so that it's unique to your profile. And there are also some sample answers included in this video so that you can get a sense and you can frame your answers using that. One quick note to add here is that sometimes officers ask, why this course now? Now, there's a lot of significance in that word now, and usually you'll see that this question is asked to people who have experience. And the main intent behind this is to ask that if you already graduated, you're already working, why do you need a master's? And the trick to answer this question is to relate the master's to the recent experience. So let's say that you've been working for about 5 years, but the last 1 year or last 2 years of your experience has something which relates more to the master's. So when you answer why this course now, make sure that you relate to the most recent part of your experience and then connect it forward to the course. All of this is again explained in that video that I just referred, so make sure to watch it. The next question related to the course that we saw frequently was, do you not have this course in India? So this is just another way of asking why US. So instead of asking why US, officers in Mumbai have asked it as, do you not have this course in India? So here you have to compare the curriculum between US and India and highlight the differences. Maybe it could be in the number of electives, in the domains, or any other difference that you saw related to your field. The third question related to the course was, why the rush to complete it in 9 months? So in one of the instances, we saw that officers asked specifically why the rush to complete the course in 9 months or in 1 year. And you have to again justify what was the reason. Maybe you have professional reasons to come back. Maybe you have a sabbatical to come back to. Or maybe it could also be a mix of professional and a personal reason. So the next category of questions is the university. And this was the next most common asked domain after the course. So in the university, students did get the standard question of how did you come to know about this university and why this university. But they also got some different questions. One of them was, if you get into XYZ university, will you go there? So this was in response to a previous question where the student was asked what are the universities they applied to, and the student mentioned, and then the officer picked one and said that if you got into this university, would you go there? For example, let's say that you say I applied to Northeastern, UTD and University of South Florida. Now the officer could ask you, what if you had got into University of South Florida, will you go there? So this is essentially a comparison between the 2 universities where you had to compare the one that you've chosen and the other university and justify the choice. Now do keep in mind that when you do this, do not bash the second university completely and make it look like everything was wrong with it, because then the question comes, why did you even apply to that university? So it has to be a very logical comparison wherein you bring out the subtle points, how the course is different, or maybe there was something which connected to you personally. One example could be a class profile. Let's say that you are somebody who comes with experience, but the other university's class profile more has freshers in it. So probably you wouldn't prefer that, and you would prefer going to a university which has people with similar experience. So in this way, compare the 2 universities and bring out the subtle points in which your university is better than the other one. We also have a full-fledged video on university, and I'm going to link it here, so do watch it because this will help you think of more such points of comparison. The next category of questions in Mumbai Embassy were all the extra questions, and these were the unique ones that we found. And some of them were, what is the purpose of your travel? So surprisingly, many students were asked, what's the purpose of your visit? Typically in F1 visa interview, purpose of visit is not asked, but in Mumbai Embassy, we saw this being asked. And this essentially becomes like an introduction where you tell the officer that your purpose is to travel on a student visa because you've got admitted into so-and-so university for so-and-so course. And if he's letting you talk, you can even continue as to why you want to do that course in that university. The second unique question that we saw was why this course and why this university asked in one go. So typically officers ask why this course and why this university as two separate questions. But in Mumbai, we saw that many officers combined the two and said that why this course and why this university. Now, the way to answer it is that first you start with the course part and you justify why you've picked that course, how it's relevant to you. And then you add one or two pointers about the speciality of that course in the university that you've picked for. For example, let's say that you're going for Masters in Engineering Management at SJSU. Now, when you start answering, you talk about why engineering management is relevant for your profile, and then bring out one or two points about the engineering management course at SJSU. Maybe they had some unique electives, or maybe in this particular course at SJSU, they offer an internship and a project. So bring out one or two unique points of that course in that university and end your answer with that. Couple of other unique questions asked in Mumbai Embassy. What is your age? So they seem to ask this quite a bit to students. What is your age? I'm guessing this is more of a verification where they just want to see that the profile that is shown and the age of the person is actually matching. And the last unique question was all the previous travel to the US. So any student who had any previous history of a US visa or any previous travel to the US, especially if it was a longer travel, was questioned, and they were asked where did they go, who did they visit, and how much time did they stay there. This is a complete analysis of the Mumbai Embassy. I really hope it helps you. If you came across any new questions of Mumbai Embassy, feel free to put it in the comment section below because this is going to help the other students as well. The next embassy that we're going to cover is the Delhi Embassy. And Delhi Embassy saw a huge volume of the F1 visa applications. And I'm going to again start with the general guidelines. So the time taken in Delhi Embassy was about 2 hours. So a typical time in which the student could complete the entire process from the time they reached, entered, completed the basic steps to the interview and then getting out was about 2 hours. So if you're planning to go to Delhi Embassy, keep in mind that 2 hours is the time that you need to budget. The number of questions were very typical in Delhi Embassy, about 4 to 5. So a normal length of an F1 visa interview is 4 to 5 questions, and Delhi Embassy seemed to follow that. The most asked question was why this course and funding. So when you observe the interviews in Delhi Embassy, course related questions were very common, and also funding. Almost every student was asked something related to funding in the Delhi Embassy. So these are the general guidelines, and now let's look at the category of questions. The first category of questions was about bachelors. So questions related to the previous education were asked quite frequently, and the main questions that officers wanted to know was about the subject studied in the bachelor's. So what have you done in your studies till now? What did you study in your undergraduation? What are the subjects of your undergrad that you remember? These are the common questions that came related to the bachelor's. And keep in mind that when you highlight these subjects, you need to pick the ones which relate to the course in the US. Because in a bachelor, if it's a 3-year or a 4-year, you would have done many subjects. But out of those, the ones which relate to the master's are the ones that need to be highlighted in the US visa interview. Also keep in mind that when you speak about a subject, it's very possible that a technical question comes related to it. So you need to be prepared and you need to know which subjects exactly you need to mention so that you're also able to handle any technical question related to that. I had a student who was asked this question in the interview, and he mentioned that he really liked studying programming languages in his bachelor's. And then the officer went on to ask him what were the programming languages, what was the advantage and disadvantage of that programming language, and how would he decide where to use which programming language. So the technical questions essentially flow from what you say in the interview. So if you're going to name any subject from your bachelor's, make sure that you're prepared for that. The next category of questions was the course, and the course was a category which was asked quite frequently in Delhi Embassy. So students were asked what subjects are you going to study in the course. So the officer wanted to know the breakup of the course, whether the bachelor's or the master's in the US, and what were the subjects. Now most universities will have the course breakup on their website. So before you go for the interview, you need to be really thorough and very comfortable with the course of your master's or your bachelor's, and you need to know how many credits is the course, what are my compulsory subjects, what are my electives, and which concentration or which stream am I interested in. And again, technical questions could come from this. So whatever course names or whatever subjects you're going to mention in the interview, be able to explain it and have at least one example for it. Officers love asking examples for the subjects that you're going to study. So for example, very frequently they ask, give me an example of AI, an example of ML, or give me an example where data mining is used. So be prepared for these examples when you talk about the course names in the US. The second common question was why this course? So why do you want to study this? Why this course? How will this course help you? This was asked in the Delhi Embassy. And we have an entire video which explains how to frame this answer, provide this course. So make sure to check it out. When I work with students, many times I see that the answer is not wrong, but it's not specific to that particular course. For example, many times I hear the answer that this course will help me overcome the struggles that I'm having in my work right now and help me get a better role in my career or in my, same organization. While this answer is true, it's not wrong, but it's not specific to your course. I could probably use this answer for any course that I want to study in the US. So you really need to make sure that the answer is relevant to your profile right now. Maybe you're working for 5 years, but your profile right now needs something. So it needs to be specific to your profile right now and also specific to the course that you've actually picked in the US. So do watch that video that I mentioned. It does clearly explain how to follow this step-by-step process. The next category of questions is the university. And in university, the officers asked why this university, why did you pick this university quite frequently. We also have a video explaining why this university. So I'm going to link it right here. And again, in this video, there's some sample answers and it gives you the entire framework of how to do the research about a university. So check it out. And the second question about university that was asked was, I have never heard of this university. So this I feel is a way in which officers try to trick or put pressure on you by saying, I've never heard of this university. Where are you going? And the key in that moment is not get stressed or tensed about it. Stay calm and tell the officer one or two factual points about the university and then move into your why this university answer. For example, you could start by saying that actually this university is located in so-and-so place and it's a public or a private university and I came to know about it through the research that I did and I really liked about this university because then you mention the points of why this university. The next category of questions was funding, and funding was something that was asked a lot in Delhi Embassy. So there were many questions. The first one is, who is sponsoring you? So who is sponsoring you essentially is nothing but another way of asking how are you funding your education. Now when you answer this question, keep in mind that you tell about your sponsor, who could be your parent, your father or your mother, and also tell about other sources like a loan or any scholarship that you have. Because if the officer asks who is sponsoring you, they might not come back and ask again, do you have a loan or about your scholarship? So in this answer itself, mention all the sources of your funding. The next question, what does your sponsor do? That means you have to describe the profession of your sponsor. And one quick tip here is to be very, very exact in the profession. Many times when I work with students, I get answers like, my father has his own business. While that's true, it's still not clear. And I still have questions, what business is it? Where is this business? And who exactly, work with him? So when you answer the profession, be exact. If it's a business, you can mention very clearly that my father has his own business, which is into manufacturing of so-and-so, or my father has an agriculture business. So complete the description of your sponsor's profession. The third common question was, what is the annual income of your sponsor? So this was also asked quite frequently in Delhi Embassy. Remember that whenever you mention income, always mention annual, even if the officer doesn't specify annual, but when you tell the answer, it should always be annual. And it can be in INR. You don't necessarily have to say it in USD. And one pro tip that we follow when we train our students is that when we mention the annual income of the sponsor, we continue the answer to tell the rest of the funding. That means the student who works with us wouldn't just say, okay, my annual income of my sponsor is 15 lakhs and stop. He would continue to say, my sponsor has so much savings, so much property. I also have an education loan. Because many times when they ask the annual income, again, it's not necessary they'll ask you funding again. So it's best to complete all your funding sources here itself. The next question related to funding, how are they going to finance you? That means you have to again explain what are the sources of funding that are available with your sponsor. And the last question about funding was related to the loan. So students were asked very commonly, what is the rate of interest of your loan and what's the repayment period? So all of these are typically mentioned in the sanction letter. So once you get the sanction letter, make sure that you go through it and you are familiar with these numbers. Next is the extra category of questions asked in the Delhi Embassy. And in this, we observe one question, what other social media accounts do you use? Now, some of the students were asked this, and though you're required to declare all the social media accounts now, I think some students were asked this just for verification, and probably the officer wanted to see whether you will mention some social media accounts that you haven't listed in the TS-160 form. So number one, you need to take care that you list all your social media accounts and not just the ones in the drop down, but also there's an additional question where you can list any extra social media platforms that you have. And also make sure that all these links are public and you are aware of what you have put in the form so that if at all you're asked this, there's no mismatch between your form and your answer. So this was the overview of the Delhi Embassy. I hope it has helped you. If you came across any other unique questions or you have any other doubt regarding the Delhi Embassy, feel free to put it in the comment section below. Next, we have the Hyderabad Embassy. Now, Hyderabad saw the largest volume of F1 visa applications, and this has been the trend from, I think, the last 2 years, that most of the F1 visa slots tend to open up in Hyderabad, resulting in a big volume of students. And Hyderabad, I felt, was the embassy that was the most balanced in terms of the interview questions. Like Mumbai focused a lot on university, Delhi focused a lot on funding, but when we observed the interviews in Hyderabad, it was a good mix of all the categories. So students were asked bachelors, they were asked about the course, technical questions, university, funding, and even future plan and why US. So literally the entire range of questions were covered in the Hyderabad Embassy. Again, starting with some general guidelines. So in Hyderabad Embassy, it's again taking about 2 hours to complete the interview. Though the volume of applications is large, but Hyderabad Embassy also had more number of counters that were open and a more streamlined process, I feel. So because of that, the interviews Didn't take too long, just about 2 hours to complete the entire process. So Hyderabad followed the typical timeline of an F1 visa interview in which 4 to 5 questions were asked to students. One thing we observed in Hyderabad is that students who got rejected were asked less number of questions. So in the interview experiences where there was a rejection, we observed that the number of questions were 2, sometimes 3 at max, whereas the ones where it went through and they were asked, to basically submit their passport, we saw at least 4 to 5 questions asked for those cases. And like I said, the most asked question was all the areas. So if you're going to Hyderabad Embassy, you need to basically focus on all the domains of the questions. So this is a general guideline. Now let's look at the questions. So first category is related to the bachelors. So for bachelors, students were asked, what have you done in your studies till now? And what are the subjects you studied in your bachelors? So both these are the same way of asking what exactly did they do in the bachelors. And here the officers really want to see the link between your bachelors and the masters, because this is actually one of the parameters for F1 visa approval. There are a lot of countries where your previous education doesn't matter and you can go ahead and study any course that you feel like, but not in US. US is one country where your previous education and your profile matters a lot, and it needs to be in sync with the masters that you're going for. Many times students face this struggle that they would have done a bachelor's in a different domain, but the course is in a completely different domain. And in such cases, creating this link is really important. And keep in mind that the link need not be exact one-to-one match. Even if there's some domains, some subjects that are common, or some subjects from your bachelor's which kind of gave you like the groundwork for the masters, even that counts. Additionally, one hack here would be to talk about online courses and certifications that you did on your own in your bachelor's. So let's say that your bachelor's doesn't really connect that well to the master's, but you on your own did some online courses, some certifications which do connect to the master's. You could mention that here. So the way to say it would be to first tell the one of the subject from your bachelor's to which relate, and then add that additionally on my own I have done these courses and these certifications which are going to help me in my master's. The second questions regarding bachelor's that was asked was, what are you doing since your bachelor's? So this referred more to the experience part, where the officers wanted to know if there's any gap after the bachelor's, is there any experience, or anything else like internships. And here, do keep in mind that this has to be consistent with your DS-160 form. So whatever you have mentioned in your DS-160 form, the same thing needs to be told to the officer. The next category of questions in the Hyderabad Embassy was related to the course. So course was something that is asked, I think, in almost all embassies. And the standard question of why this course, why masters, why do you want to do this masters, and also how exactly will this course help you was asked in Hyderabad. So we have an entire video related to the course. I'm going to link it here, and I think this video really explains well the structure that you need to follow. Essentially, it needs to be like a triangle. You need to start with where you're right now, what's the limitation or the hurdle you're facing, what is it that you want to get to, and how the course is going to help you do that. So connecting these three things gives an answer which is very unique to your profile, and it is also convincing. So do check out this video for this framework and also some sample answers. The next category of questions in Hyderabad was related to the university. So here students were asked, why this university? Why only this university? So many times students told why this university, and then they were asked why only this university. I think this happened in cases where the answer was not convincing enough and they really wanted some more points, some more perspective, and to see whether you have anything more to say. So that's when this other question came of why only this university. Then students were also asked what are your other admits, and then some of them were asked why XYZ university over XYZ. That means they wanted a comparison of the two university. So let's say that I told the officer that I have admits from Northeastern and UTD. So the officer could ask me that why UTD over Northeastern? That means why have you picked UTD and not picked Northeastern? So here you have to do a comparison between the two university and give your preference. Do keep in mind not to completely bash the other university. So many times when I work with students, I see that the tendency is to go too negative on the other university. But the whole point is you did apply to it and you got admitted. So clearly there was something good in that university. So the comparison needs to be subtle. It needs to bring on the positives in your university without completely, demolishing the other one. So pointers like having a scholarship, which probably you didn't have in the other university, some one or two electives which are very different, having a more connect, getting better information from this university. So all of these pointers will help you in distinguishing the two. We have this full video on why this university, and in this video we do talk about the framework as to how to derive this answer, and I think that framework can also be used for comparing the two universities, so make sure to check it out. The next category of questions in Hyderabad was related to funding. So related to funding, students were asked to explain your funding. That means you have to explain your complete funding, your savings, your loan, scholarship. Do keep in mind that funding needs to be consistent with I-20, which means that whatever is mentioned in the I-20 needs to be told to the officer for sure. And to that, you can always add additional sources of funding. But whatever is there in the I-20 should remain. What are the sources of your funding? How much is the loan sanction amount? Which means you have to know the sanction letter and read through it before your interview. People were also asked questions on their sponsor's profession, such as how many people are working in your father's business? How old is your father's business? And I think all of these questions helps the officer understand the stability of your sponsor's income and their profession. Then questions were also asked about scholarship. Why is scholarship not mentioned in your I-20? So in some cases, we see that university does not mention the scholarship, many times because the scholarship was issued later, after the I-20 was given. So it's not yet updated. So the suggestion I have is that do ask your university to update the scholarship in the I-20. It's always better if it's clear and visible to the visa officer. But in case they can't do it, carry that email or the proof of your scholarship. And when you mention the scholarship in the interview, add it yourself that it's not mentioned in the I-20, but I'm carrying the proof related to it. The next question about scholarship was, what are the prerequisites of getting the scholarship? So the officer wanted to understand that on what basis did you get this scholarship? Maybe it was because of your education profile, your work profile, your test scores. It could also be a combination of all of these factors. The next category of question was the future plan. And related to future plan, students were asked, what will you do after masters? What are your career plans? So these plans have to link to India, and you need to indicate the potential, the growth, the opportunities that exist in India or in your home country. And lastly, the extra questions asked in Hyderabad Embassy were, why US? Why do you want to study in the US? And questions around the siblings. That means the siblings in the US. And finally, what preparations did you do for this course? So this I thought was a very unique question that we saw that officers asked, what preparations did you do for this course? That means the course in the US. So here one could refer to any online courses, any certifications, or even if your profile itself is relevant. Let's say that your work experience itself is very relevant to the course, or your bachelor's is recent and that's also very relevant to the course. Even that could be mentioned here. So these are all the questions which were related to the Hyderabad Embassy, and I hope that this has given you a general idea and also the specifics of the questions. If you have any other doubt, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Also, if you noticed any other unique question about Hyderabad Embassy, do put it down. It will really help all the other students. And next we have the Chennai Embassy. So the Chennai Embassy again saw a moderate volume of applications. I think the highest were in Delhi and Hyderabad, followed by Chennai. And again, I'll start with the general guidelines. So in Chennai Embassy, the interview is taking about 2.5 hours, slightly longer than the other embassies that we observed. And the typical questions asked in Chennai Embassy is about 4 to 5. So this is a standard pattern of F1 visas where about 4 to 5 questions are asked, and the same was followed in Chennai as well. And the most common question asked in Chennai Embassy were related to the course and to the university. So questions related to the course and the university seem to be the focus of the officers in the Chennai Embassy. Now let's look at the specific category of questions. So the first category that we found was related to the course. So here one question that was asked is, why is the course mentioned different in your I-20? So many times it happens that the I-20 doesn't reflect the actual course that you're going for. And this is quite common in the US. And the universities wouldn't change the I-20 and mention your exact course because they need to follow a certain code of the course naming. So if the officer asks this, I think there are 2 ways to handle it. First is to be proactive. When you mention the course, that time itself tell the officer that it's different in my I-20. For example, if you're asked which course are you going for, you could say that I'm going for XYZ course, but in my I-20, it is mentioned as so-and-so, and then say that I have the acceptance email or the admit letter where the actual course is mentioned. So one way is this, be proactive. Let's say that you missed mentioning it or you couldn't mention it. You always indicate to the officer you have the proof of that acceptance letter or email where the actual course is mentioned. So tell the officer that in the I-20 it's mentioned in a different way because of the university naming that they follow, but I do have the admit letter or the acceptance letter where the actual course name is mentioned. The second question related to course that was asked is, what exactly will you study in this course? So this referred to the subjects. So the officers wanted to understand the subjects. Now, many times when I work with students and we discuss this question, I see that the answer revolves around an overview of the course, but I feel it's better to be very specific and give some names. So drop in some names of the core courses, some electives, or something from the specialization that you're picking, because this tells the officer that you really have gone through the course, the curriculum in detail, and you know what exactly the course is about. The third common question that was asked is, what makes you go back to school? So this is a very, I feel, a nice way of asking why this course or why this master's. So instead of just asking why this course, the officer asked that, what makes you go back to school? That means what's motivating you to do this master's? Why do you want to study this? But you can give the same answer that you've prepared for why this course or why master's. The next category of questions was related to the university. So related to the university, the students were asked, why this university? Why did you pick this one? Some of them were also asked, what did you like in this university? So instead of asking why this university, they were asked, what did you like in this university? Again, the same question, you can use the same answer. And when you mention your like, you can also bring in 1 or 2 personal points and preferences. In fact, we have a video on university wherein we talk about this personal connect angle and how that's becoming more and more important in the answers for why this university. So make sure to check out this video. Related to funding and future plan, we didn't see too many questions in Chennai Embassy, and the ones that were asked were the basic explain your funding or what's your future plan. And lastly, we had the extra questions in Chennai Embassy. So we saw a couple of extra questions. One of them said that you have got a research assistantship in your course, that have you done any research? So I think the student's I-20 mentioned a graduate assistantship or a research assistant position. So the officer wanted to understand that have you done any research to get this position? The second extra question was please introduce yourself. So for many students, the interview started with this, please introduce yourself. And I feel it's actually a tricky question because you never know when to stop or how much should I say. And should I just talk about my family, where I am from, or should I stick to the professional side? So here's a quick guideline for this question. The number one is nothing personal. You don't need to mention anything personal like which city you're from, where are you from, none of that is required. The introduction needs to be purely professional and it needs to cover your academics and your work experience. Now, if your work experience is more relevant, start with that. So you could go backwards. So you could say that my name is so-and-so, currently I'm working in this position, maybe add one line about your role, and then say that prior to this, my bachelor's was in so-and-so domain. Or if you think your bachelor's is more recent, more relevant, you could start with that. And if you have a good CGPA, a good score, you could even highlight that in this introduction. Especially if this question comes right in the beginning of the interview, it is so important because it literally sets the tone for the officer for the rest of the interview. Another extra question, which was again quite unique that we saw was, did you get your job through campus placements? Now, what exactly does the officer want to infer from this, whether it was a campus placement or not? Maybe one of the things which I think is that maybe they wanted to understand what type of university you studied, or what type of college did you study in, how big was it, how structured was it, and was it actually established enough to offer campus placement? Probably this could be one of the reasons, but yeah, this was a question that was asked in Chennai Embassy. So here's the general overview and some of the unique questions of Chennai Embassy. I hope this has helped you. If you have any other doubts about Chennai Embassy, or if you came across some unique question that we have missed, do put it down in the comment section below. So I hope that this has brought you up to date with everything that has happened for spring 2026, and this helps you in planning your preparation. Like I said before, if you have a visa appointment, consider yourself really lucky and make sure that you prepare really well. So right from your DS-160 form to your answers to the mock, everything needs to be structured. If you want to prepare one-to-one with me, do check out the links in the description box below. We essentially have two parts or two packages for students. One is our 7-day, which is a more detailed prep, and it consists of 7 sessions. We start by analyzing the profile, we fill the DS-160 form, then we have a very detailed answer structuring, and then multiple mocks to get thorough and build that confidence. This is especially useful for students who have a rejection, and even if you want to smash it in the first attempt and you do not want to take anything chance, I think the 7-day is perfect. We also have another path or another package for students, and that's the core. Core, I feel, is a shorter version of the 7-day. It starts with a review of your DS-160 form, then goes to the interview prep, and then a mock. So the link for both of this is right below. Do check it out. And I highly recommend starting early. Start before your biometrics so that we have enough time to help you from the DS-160 form itself, and then align the interview prep and the mock according to that. We also have more videos planned for spring 2026 intake, so make sure that you stay tuned and subscribe. And if you want to contact me, feel free to leave it in the comment section, or you could also DM me. My Instagram handle is @shachi.mall, or contact us at the email ID mentioned right here. So that's all for this video. I'll see you in the next one.